think we should begin now. So, welcome to everyone who joined us live today, whether you're winding down your evening in India or powering through your midday. I'm so glad that you could join us live. I'm Munazza Faruqi, and I have the absolute joy of being the host of today's session. Now, a little insight into who we are. We are a recognized user group affiliate of Wikimedia Foundation. We are a community of people who care deeply about enriching Wikipedia and its sister platforms with accurate and comprehensive knowledge in Muslim academia, scholarship, history, and culture. Everything we do is tied back to the Wikimedia vision to help people collect and develop open knowledge, focusing closely on preserving heritage and driving digital equity. And that mission is exactly what led us to create the DCW Conversation Hour. It was born from a simple need. We wanted to bridge the gap between movement wide strategies and the real on ground needs of organizers. This is a completely open global space which is built for everyone. We evaluate the gaps, iterate on new ideas, and adapt to the shifting landscape. A couple of friendly logistics so we can settle in and have a seamless experience. This session is being recorded. Please keep your microphones muted so that we do not have any disruptions when the speaker is presenting. And we want this to be an active conversation, so the chat box is always open for your comments, for your ideas, and for your reflections. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I will be tracking them, and we do have a reserved 15-minute Q&A segment at the end to address them. Today, we are hitting one of the toughest challenges in the community organizing space, which is momentum. Specifically, what do you do when a local community goes completely quiet? We will walk through activities that spark genuine excitement around volunteering, securing the local partnerships, and funding that is needed to sustain growth. We will also take a look at the Wikimedians in Sicily and Wiki Sud Italia as model spaces for volunteer empowerment and true collaboration. And to walk us through this, I'm so pleased to introduce our speaker today. Léa is a community management consultant with over 15 years of experience inside the global open knowledge ecosystem. She is the founder of Wiki Sud Italia and the driving force behind the Wikimedia Consultants Network. Her journey began in 2010 as a local volunteer in the movement. For nearly a decade, Léa has collaborated with Wikimedia Tuition to support the global Wikidata community. In this role, she coordinated flagship international events, including multiple editions of Wikidata Conference. Her proven ability to unite diverse technical environments also led her to work with the Wikimedia Foundation, where she coordinated with International Wikimedia Hackathon. And as an independent consultant, she regularly collaborates on specialized contract projects across the movement. She designs training and introduction sessions for the newly hired staff at chapters like Wikimedia Europe and Wikimedia CH. Her cross-border portfolio spans from consulting on the Celtic Knot Conference for the Wikimedia UK and Wikimedia Community Ireland to managing and performing arts data integration projects for cultural institutions. Since late 2023, Léa has anchored a powerful resurgence within the Sicilian Wikimedia community by organizing local meetups and driving high-impact cultural initiatives like Wiki Loves Sicilia. She has successfully fostered sustainable bottom-up volunteer passion. Today, she will share the specific frameworks and the strategies that will transform a quiet region into a model of collaborative momentum. We are incredibly honored to have your expertise here today. Over to you, Léa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. All right. So that was a perfect introduction. There is not more that I can say. Maybe the only thing is that yeah, I live most of my life in Europe, and I lived in several countries, from France, where I started as a volunteer in my local Wikimedia group, to Germany while I was working for the local chapter, and then my path brought me to Italy 4 years ago. And the first thing that I did when I moved to Sicily, which is an island in the middle of the Mediterranean, was where are my fellow Wikimedians? And this is where I realized that although there is an active chapter in Italy, of course, in this specific region, and especially after COVID, that put a stop to all real life activities, there was not much of an active group left. And so I wanted to revive it. And this is where my journey started. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of context to get you to understand what is the specific situation of Sicily. Because maybe from the outside, one may think that Europe is a unified region of the world where people have the same access to economic resources and opportunities, but it is not the case. From country to country, and even within one country, from region to region, the realities can be pretty different. And this is the case for southern Italy, which has been the place where I decided to live. In Italy, we have the situation where there is this disparity and this economical and human resource gap between the north and the south. The north being historically much more industrialized, and so more and more people have been moving there, and it's also until now, it's been driving most of the economy of the country, which created systemic issues. Also underfunded administration in the southern regions. And as I mentioned, a lot of people have been moving from the south to the north looking for a job, which created a huge brain drain with all the workers and the students leaving the regions. So what does it mean in our context in the Wikimedia project? So it means that when you look at the map of the activities in Italy, at least until 3 years ago that we started our activities, most of the real life events, the conferences, the training, and the partnerships with institutions were all taking place in the north, which also triggered more funding for the groups that were based in the north, because they could show that they were organizing more events. In the south, the cultural GLAM institutions are also less informed about Wikipedia and the Wikimedia project, about the possibility, maybe because they suffered of a lack of training, updates of their staff about new technologies in general. And they usually have access to less funding, so they have less opportunities to run partnerships, digitalization of their collection that could end up on Wikimedia Commons, and in general, just less time, space, and energy to think about such projects while they are fighting to just keep their museum open, for example. And since there are less people available to edit, there's also less content that is produced about um, the places and the culture and the history of these regions. So there is also this disparity when it comes to the content itself. Wikipedia articles, Wikivoyage articles, pictures on Wikimedia Commons, and so on and so on. So when I moved to southern Italy at the end of 2022, here's the context that I found. The south of Italy was not completely inactive because there was already a group in the region called Puglia, which was really active. They were running very successful Wiki Love Monuments campaign, for example, plenty of collaborations, for example, with the university and local libraries. So we had an inspiration. We had a group that we could look at and say, okay, they made it, so we could do it as well in Sicily, which was very, very useful. As I mentioned, there was also a history of activities taking place, including in Sicily. For example, one attempt of having a local edition of the Wikilove Monuments contest. But unfortunately, as everywhere else, COVID hit and put a stop to all the meetups and real life events. And after these couple of years where not much happened, basically maybe the people who used to be involved had moved on, and the new and younger Wikipedians didn't really know that it was a possibility to do things physically in presence. And so there was the need to restart everything. And I should also mention that Wikimedia Italia, which is the Wikimedia affiliate that operates on the entire country, They had some attempts of reviving the activity in some regions, but I would tend to say that if the initiative is not bottom up, if it's not the people who live in the region who kind of motivate themselves to start something, there is only so much that the local chapter located in another city, in another region can do. And finally, the trigger for all of this was that the group in Puglia that I was telling you about, that is very active, managed to bring the national WikiCon, so basically the Wikimedia conference at the scale of Italy that is taking place every year in a different country, in a different city. They managed to bring the conference to Bari, which is the capital city of this region. And that created a lot of attention put on this region of the South, a lot of excitement from the volunteers in the region. And it was the perfect occasion for us to sit together with the few volunteers who are living in southern Italy and to say, okay, what should we do? How can we revive our regions? How can we create even some Wikimedia activity in places where so far there was none? It started with an informal meetup, but this is basically how the group Wiki Sud Italia was born. Okay. So here's how we started. After this initial meetup in Bari in 2023, we had gathered already a few people who wanted to form a group and to start working together on creating more activity in our region. So very quickly, we set up some online meetups. We decided to meet monthly to update each other on what we were doing in our respective regions, to share, most importantly, knowledge and experience on how to develop project and events, because not everyone part of the group had the same experience. We had the people in Puglia, for example, who had already this experience of running Wikilog monuments and so on. And we had people who maybe they were editors on Wikipedia, but they were not really familiar to how to bring these activities to in the real world, basically by running events, organizing projects or partnerships. So we really needed to share this knowledge among us. We started putting our forces together to organize events. And we ended up, for example, running satellite events of the Wikimedia Hackathon because there was also an interest in the technical aspects in some of the people that formed the group. So we decided to go for it. And one very important thing that we started to do, especially in Sicily, was looking for active editors in these regions because we were so sure that the Wikipedians, Wikimedians were already there, just that they didn't know necessarily that they could attend meetups and that they could talk to others, or simply they didn't necessarily want to reveal themselves. So we had a system of kind of hunting for local Wikipedians, if you may say, for example, by going to the pages related to the region, the cities, the villages, but also the events, the football team, whatever was interesting to see who were the editors who would regularly update these pages. And we would not force them to disclose themselves, of course, but we would send them a little message that said, hey, did you know that in our region we actually have a group of active Wikimedians, and here are the events that we're organizing, so feel free to join us. And we encourage people in different regions to do the same in order to start with the people that are already there. Another thing that we did in the frame of the Wiki Sud Italia group was to support each other in finding resources, because of course to run projects and events we need money, and some people had quite some experience in asking for grants or finding or looking for sponsors, for example. So we also shared this kind of knowledge. So here are a few examples of projects that we run in the frame of this Wiki Sud Italia group in the past 2 years and a half, 3 years. As I mentioned, we organized these satellite events of the Wikimedia hackathons that were basically gathering of the technical community, or let's say people who are interested in the technical aspects of the Wikimedia projects in the whole of Italy. But we run them specifically in our region, so we could also attract a little bit of attention on the regions where we're trying to revive the community. At any step of the way, we try to collaborate with other organizations. We successfully run Wiki Love Sicilia, which was our first partnership with an institutional level, like the Sicily region, basically. We managed to get some funding that was originally coming from from some EU funding in order to have a program focused on food. But I will come back to that later on. We had partnerships also with other organizations or cultural events. Attending and being part of a comics convention, for example, it sounds unusual, but it's actually a really great way to get visibility. So in Campania, the region of Naples, very recently, a group of freshly arrived and very motivated Wikimedians made a partnership with the local comics conference to have a booth and to run an editathon. And it was a great way to get in touch with people who may have used Wikipedia for such a long time, but still so many people don't know that you can actually contribute and get involved and understand how it works. So this was a great success. And we really try to collaborate with like-minded communities because there are not a lot of people out there who care about sharing knowledge and about open source software. So it's really important to start from the communities that exist. And in our case, for example, in Sicily, we have quite active open data community. And although they are more looking at governments releasing data under an open license to reuse it on applications, we still have a lot in common. For example, we both rely on OpenStreetMap a lot. So we found some ways to collaborate with each other. We invited them to our events. We run some presentations together in order to get their people excited about our project and vice versa. Same thing with the Linux user group and any kind of open source software nerds. These are people, even if they were not really interested in the Wikimedia project in the first place, we share a lot of common values. And we realized that actually within these groups, most of these people who are so experts on open source software, they actually didn't know that Wikipedia was something that you could contribute to, and that it was built by volunteers only. So we had a lot of discussions around them, and we got a few of them to become active editors with us. Same with the developers groups. We also recently collaborating with the Fab Labs, so spaces that are hacking on hardware and electronics and collaborating with students to build things. And they were also really interested in what we could do together. And finally, we also try to publicize and talk about our experience. So it could not only inspire others to do similar things, but also create connection with people who may evolve in similar conditions. And in fact, when we run a presentation at Wikimania 2024, we started connecting with other Wikimedia groups from the Mediterranean, for example, from Malta and from Tunisia, and I think they recognize themselves a lot with what we had to say about our context and our challenges. And so we started step by step building more collaboration. It could be as simple as inviting each other to be juries in our Wikilove Monuments local contest, for example, and inviting each other to events. And we actually hope that we can do this again at Wikimania this year to put together other Wikimedia groups from the Mediterranean and try to figure out how we could create connections and run projects together. So we are although we are really local and focusing on a very small, at the scale of the world, very small territory, we always try to keep the connection with the bigger frame and with our neighbors, basically. Now, here are some of the challenges that we are still facing and that on which we are trying to work, and we hope to improve in the upcoming years. So although some of the regions of southern Italy have become much more active in the past 3 years, we still have a lot of areas where there are no active communities at all. We are pretty sure that there are Wikimedians who are based in this region, but maybe they don't know yet that we exist or they don't want to participate. And also certainly there is the need to train and bring more people on board from these regions. So there is still very much work in progress. It's also that in our case, we're not only looking for Wikipedians who edit Wikipedia or the other Wikimedia projects, we are looking for people who would like to get involved in organizing real-life events, to run projects, including the asking for a grant, who would be able to go to their local museum or administration and try to create partnerships. So this is not the same set of skills, and this is not the same activity. And we understand that a Wikipedian who likes to edit Wikipedia alone with their books, they are not necessarily interested in going to the local municipality and knock at the door of the mayor and talk about Wikipedia, right? So we are looking for this specific kind of profiles, or like people who already are doing this kind of things and would be interested in doing it also in the frame of Wikimedia. And this is not necessarily so easy to find. We always have a lot of difficulties to reach out to institutional partners, either because they don't know much about us or they are not sure what to do with us. In most cases, I think they are lacking already so much resources, both money and people available to run this kind of project, that they just, even if they're interested, they don't have the time and the space to do some things together. So there is still much work to do on this topic. And then, of course, this is a universal problem. I know that each single Wikimedia group out there has the same problem, is that even if we run a workshop, an editathon, and on the moment it seems that it's super successful, people have been excited, they created their account and they made a few edits on the topic that we proposed, then 99% of them never go back to it. And we really have this problem of like long-term retention. I personally made my peace with that. I think I accepted that once when we run trainings and workshops, there is maybe one person who's really gonna click with what we're doing, either because they are already so excited about sharing knowledge, that may be the case in the academic field, for example, or because they already have this kind of hacking, figuring out things mindset, like clicking on buttons and figuring out how it works and contributing. And the bad news is that most of the time, these few people who really get into it are usually people who are already very busy with other things. Maybe they are still students, maybe they are already involved in like 5 different associations and non-profit projects because they already have this will to do something great and contribute positively to the state of the world. And so, of course, they will not have a lot of time. But over the past 3 years, we still managed to connect with a few people who were really, really excited and who are active members of our group now. So, yeah. It means that we need to deploy a lot of efforts and connect with a lot of people in order to find the few of them who will actually follow us on the long run. And finally, we still miss a stable funding plan, because right now, whenever one of us is running an event or planning a project, we have ways to get funding. We usually ask for a micro grant or a project grant that is provided by the Italian chapter, which is already a great opportunity. Occasionally, we've been also asking for a rapid grant at the Wikimedia Foundation to run our hackathons, for example. But this is still a project-based funding. It requires a lot of effort to ask for the money and then report on what we did. And it doesn't really allow us to make long-term plans because we don't really know if the money will keep coming and where it will come. So maybe one next step for us could be to find a way to have a more stable long-term funding option that would allow us to make also to run more ambitious projects. Now, this was a presentation of Wiki Sud, this group of people, connection between Wikimedians that we built in the whole south of Italy. But now I would like to focus a little bit more on a specific region, which is Sicily, the place where I live since 2022. So Sicily is part of southern Italy. So it has the same challenges that what I discussed before. It also has some, just like the other region, disparities of population within the region itself, because it has the main two main cities, Palermo and Catania, who drive most of the economy, and thus it drives most of the young people and workers, and in general the cultural activities as well, while the smaller towns and village tend to suffer more from depopulation. And so it's not a surprise that the first, like the main Wikimedia group in Sicily is based in one of these two cities. A second one emerged recently in the other city, but in the more rural area, it's more difficult to run projects. And on top of these challenges, we also have the specificity that we're an island, and that creates some logistics issues sometimes, especially when we want to bring people to Sicily for an event, because transports take longer, they may be more expensive. When we want to go somewhere to attend an international or just a national level event, we also have to pay more. So all of this, if we're not careful, it tends to isolate us a little bit from the rest of the community. And so we're actively working on staying connected. And as I mentioned before, in Sicily, we didn't start from really zero, because some events took place in the past, such as an edition of Wikilove Monuments. But yeah, we had to revive everything after the COVID phase. Now, here are some of the things that we did to build an engaged community in Sicily, and specifically in Catania, which is the city where I live. Our goal was to bring people from just being curious about Wikipedia to actually showing up regularly to our meetings, up to finally the point where people were really engaged and being proactive in our group, taking responsibilities on some projects and so on. So we started with an event that we run in 2023, which was called Wiki Takes Catania. The Wiki Takes format, if you may be familiar with it, is the idea of, okay, we bring some Wikimedians in a place and we try to document everything. Take pictures of monuments, improve the articles about the place, and so on and so on. So we invited Wikimedians from all of Italy to come to Catania for a 2 days event where we just worked on improving the content on Wikimedia on this topic. Why it works? It works great because not only does it put some attention on the city of Catania, in our case, of the other volunteers, and they're like, oh, something is happening there as well, interesting. But it also creates this effect of, oh, something is happening in our town. it's easy to market it as Wikipedia is coming to our town. And even if it's a little bit incorrect, that's the kind of title that the press will love, for example. And so you can issue a press release saying like, oh, a Wikipedia delegation is coming to this place. And so usually they're going to get excited about it. And that's exactly what happened in our case, because some Wikipedia editors who were already active on Wikipedia, but not yet on the, let's say, community real life event aspects of it, heard about it and thought like, oh, wow, there's something happening actually in our place. I must go, absolutely. And this is how we met, for example, Giovanni, which is now one of our most active volunteer and responsible for the region at the level of the national chapter. So when it comes to communication channels, we didn't try to go big, and we focused on the things that really mattered to us, which was a wiki page on which we list our events that we can easily send the link to, for example, the people that we identify as potential participants when we send them a message on Wiki, for example. We created a list on which people can subscribe, always on Wiki, so we can send them a mass message. So that's basically the equivalent of a newsletter, but directly on Wiki. And we also started a Telegram group, because at the moment Telegram is in Europe, I would say, at least the most popular tool that Wikimedians use for like direct short messaging conversations. And so we created this group after the event, the Kickstart event that I was telling you about. And then it was the group for coordinating for the event, and then it became the group of the Wikimedians in Sicily, basically. And that's all. We didn't try, for example, to go too much on social media and so on. The national chapter, Wikimedia Italia, is active on social media. We got ourselves a Facebook page, but it was mostly to be able to create Facebook events. And honestly, Facebook didn't bring us a lot of participants, because I think people have been moving away or growing out of this platform anyway. So we're mostly staying where hopefully we will find other Wikipedians, which is on Wikipedia. We're also sending messages on Commons and other wikis of the Wikimedia ecosystem, but let's say we mostly stay on Wiki. Another thing that we started doing immediately was giving introduction sessions, workshops, presentations of Wikipedia, and so on. Honestly, I was thinking that in 2023, we're done with Wikipedia presentations, explaining how Wikipedia works. Now everyone knows. Well, I realized that no, it's not true. Like, a lot of people still don't know how Wikipedia works. They still don't know that it's collaborative, that it's fully non-profit, that anyone can participate. So we did all of these workshops. We organized a bunch of them in the frame of the university, which is great because we could get access to students who are still very motivated and they have some time, hopefully. And we managed to reach out to a few academics and teachers as well that way. But also we did some collaboration with the local Linux user group, at some developers or other technical conferences and so on. So any occasion was good to just talk about Wikipedia and the Wikimedia project and the fact that everyone can participate. As I was mentioning before, we looked into history page of Wikipedia articles. We looked at old events page. Like, we realized that before COVID, some meetups already took place in Sicily, for example, or some collaborations happen. Someday, one Wikimedian came to talk at one university about Wikipedia. Okay, and they were still the accounts of the people who participated. And even if it was 10 years ago, we thought, okay, why not write a message to these people and see if they're still active and still willing to come? So the idea was really to go in both directions. On one hand, we're trying to bring new people to Wikipedia. And on the second hand, we're looking for editors who are already on Wikipedia, and we're telling them, hey, how about meeting Wikimedians in person for a drink? Which brings me to the next point, which is organizing meetups with no productive expectations. Like we didn't go directly to editathon and let's work together. The main priority was to um, bring Wikipedians to the realization that actually it can be a fun thing to meet in person, that there are other Wikimedians, that is not necessarily a solitary activity, and that you can actually meet other people for a coffee or drink. So we did a bunch of these gatherings, for example, in the frame of this Kickstart event that I mentioned, but also regularly we're just, yeah, offering to go for a drink in one of our popular areas in the city. Then, once we had formed a little group of people who were generally interested in what we're doing, one thing that we did is try to identify which one had the potential to become more than just participants, but actually to become active volunteers and proactive in proposing things. And as I mentioned before, I noticed that usually these are people who are already involved in other associations, local groups, youth groups of something. And indeed, the most yeah, active members who are now driving the group in Sicily exactly have this kind of profile. And so the idea was to just offer them to become more active in the group. Then we started with the editathon, which is a very popular format because it's about putting people together and working on a topic. And it was important for us to work on a topic that was very popular and everyone could relate and everyone has something to say. And it's also fairly approachable, which is food. Everyone loves food. Everyone loves talking about their local specialty and how uh, my cake, the cake of my village, is not exactly the same as how you do it in your village. And we could write on Wikipedia about it. That got people really excited. We worked for 2 years on this. That was this Wiki Love Sicilia project that I was telling you about that we got funding for. And we went in different places of Sicily to take pictures of the recipes, of the food. And we got a lot of people getting closer to our group because they were excited about the topic. This was also the occasion to get out of the cities a little bit because, as I mentioned, most people in the group are based in one or the other city, so we tend naturally to organize the events there. But running this project allow us to explore different regions of the island, to go to smaller towns, and to involve people there as well. And then in the frame of this project, and thanks to the funding that we could secure, we also went a little bit above just sitting in a room and doing editathon. We could actually design experiences that were both more interesting to the people and more give them more will to come, but still interesting for the Wikimedia project. Um, so for example, instead of just going to a place and take picture of cheese, how about we actually learn how to make cheese with a professional cheesemaker? And we, of course, document the process and take pictures of each step of the way. That's one of the creative activities that we organize in order to get people excited about contributed to the Wikimedia project. Then one of the ways that is quite easy to create activities in your region is to plug into existing campaigns. Wiki Love Monuments is the most famous of them, but there are others. There are Wiki Love Folklore, Wiki Love Earth that just started internationally and so on. And this allows us to not having to start from scratch a contest or an editathon that can feel quite scary because these campaigns already have a structure. They already have maybe sometimes some funding opportunities, some platforms ready for selection or whatever. And it also makes the local volunteers feel part of something bigger. Like it's not just, oh, we're doing this thing in Sicily. We're actually part of a worldwide campaign that is Wiki Love Monuments. And I think that was pretty nice for the volunteers who participate. And then finally, 2 years after our Kickstart event, and after having a meetup in the local conference in another region of southern Italy, we could bring the national WikiCon conference to our region as well. And of course, it was a great moment because it was kind of, we were very proud of bringing the conference to our city. It was kind of a reward of all the work that we had done to put our city on the map and attract attention on the national level to our region. And so it was a great moment of just celebrating everything that we had accomplished. Also, it was another way to reach out to new people, both from the region and the nearby regions, who then got involved in Wiki Sud Italia. And now the group is even stronger and more active than before. I already mentioned connecting with like-minded groups like Linux and open source and developer groups and so on. I would also mention that it's really important to listen to the active members and understand what they want to do. For example, we started as mostly Wikipedia and Wikimedia group, but very quickly the newest entries, they actually were much more interested in OpenStreetMap, which is of course a project that is very close to our hearts as well. So we kind of derived from our original plan to focus on what these people really cared about, which was OpenStreetMap, and we started organizing more mapping parties. Um, and so these people could really grow and dive into their interests by yeah, focusing on the projects that they like the most. But in your case, it could be something else. It could be taking pictures, it could be Wiki Voyage, it could be Wikidata, anything else. Speaking of the active editors, the active volunteers, as I mentioned before, once we had identified the profiles and the people who were most likely to be willing to dedicate some time in running the group, it was really important to encourage them to take ownership on small projects first and then support them in growing into an organizer role. And that meant, for example, explaining to them how to request a grant to the local chapter, how the paperwork works, how to organize an event for the first time if it's the first time. So here it was really useful to have people who had a lot of experience in these things to be able to onboard new people and also distribute the workload. And we were able to make this happen because our leadership structure was naturally pretty decentralized, and we were able to either people working autonomously on some projects or having the possibility to just, yeah, share the knowledge among each other and not having to have like one person who would decide of everything. And finally, one thing that is, of course, very important is celebrate. Celebrate anything that we can do, celebrate the small victories, use the celebration, for example, the 25th birthday of Wikidata, as an opportunity to celebrate what we've been doing, because that's also how we keep the group together. So before I conclude, I wanted to give a special thank you to all the volunteers who have been reviving and keeping alive the Wikimedia groups, both in Sicily and in southern Italy. They've been putting a lot of energy and time and excitement in this project. I wanted to thank, of course, Wikimedia Italy, the national chapter, who has been providing funding and support anytime that we needed. And I wanted to thank you all for your invitation to present at your series of events. I hope that we still have time for some questions. And in any case, if you want to reach out to me later, we can stay in touch on Wiki, on LinkedIn, on Telegram, Instagram. I'm a little bit everywhere. So thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Leah. What stood out the most from your presentation was that how intentional and localized choices can completely flip the entire energy of a dormant community. and that reclaiming our narrative space for local culture, heritage, and language, it is entirely possible when we approach it with the right solutions. And I also love the fact that your pathway, it does not demand very instant and heavy commitment from people. It lets them move on naturally, one step at a time, from being just curious to showing up regularly, and then finally stepping up to take on real responsibility. The floor is now open for the question and answer session. You can unmute your mics to ask the question or write them in the chat. Safi, please go ahead.
Cool. I hope I am audible. Audible, sorry. My question was about volunteer motivations. Uh, Given your work at Sicily and engaging the local community and creating and curating a very good community there that's active now, what surprised you the most, about what actually motivates these volunteers to stay in touch? What's the crux, the motivation?
Um, Well, I think it was the diversity of topics that they were interested in. Like we had people who were really interested in documenting the history or cultural spaces in their region, but we also have people who are not really interested in writing about Sicily, but they are fond of completely other topics. Or, as I mentioned, we realized that most of the interest at the moment was on OpenStreetMap and not so much Wikipedia. So we changed our plans a little bit to accommodate these needs. So yeah, I would say it was mostly all the different interests that people could have, and I think it's really important to start from their interest. Like one thing that we learn also is that you cannot really force someone to contribute on a topic that they are not really excited about, and this is why sometimes the editathons don't work, because if we propose a topic and no one is actually interested, it's not going to work. So it's better to start from the people and like what are they interested in, and then shape the editathon or the project around that.
No, this perfectly makes sense. Thank you.
I had a question there that, when we organize workshops and we realize that after the initial interest of the volunteers, their retention and contribution rate drops. So what are some of the changes that we can make during our next workshop? Do we cater more towards their interest? What are the things that can be modified so that, we can bring in more people?
Yeah, so as I said, I think I made a peace with the fact that maybe only 1% of the participants of an event are actually gonna stay motivated and keep participating. And so once you accept that, it seems that the only way to get more people is actually to get more volume of participants and to try to reach as many people as possible. For example, by getting integrated in a university course or like going to big events. So the more people we meet, the more like we have the chance to find this one or two people who are going to get excited. But of course, it's not the only way. We had some quite successful activities, for example, working with the university and with a class that was already excited about one specific topic, because it was a curriculum that was about basically communication and marketing for food. And since we were in the middle of our program about documenting food on Wikipedia, we already had something in common. And so the activity was really great. They achieved much more than at a normal hackathon, where usually the results at the hackathon, at the editathon, are a little bit deceptive. Like we barely managed to create an account and make 2 edits, and then the session is already over, right? And there, because they came more prepared, especially because their teacher prepared them well as well, they already had the sources, they already had analyzed the articles, they already knew what they wanted to change. So that was a really nice event. Now, did any of them contribute again? I don't think so. Also because they were busy with their studies and so on. So this is when I'm going back to the people who are the most likely to contribute are people who already have this volunteer contributing mindset. And it means that there are people who are already involved in some kind of other project. And this is why it's so useful to connect with other groups. For example, we're talking with the Linux users user group in our city who's already organizing events. We did an event together with a Fab Lab, so these like electronic 3D printers, whatever, hackers, because these are the people who already have this mindset of, okay, if I want something to happen, I need to do it myself. And so I think we're going to have more success with these people because they already have a pretty similar way of seeing the world, basically.
We have another question in the chat. Do you have any advice for DCW around zero budget partnerships with external institutions? This has often come across as a challenge in our grant making requests.
Okay, so yeah, I assume that it means that a partnership where the institution themselves, they don't have money to dedicate to the project, and you also don't have a grant or a funding. Okay, I see. So I think in this case, the most important is to figure out what the organization, the institution wants, what do you want, and make sure that you're doing something that works for both parties. Typically, in most cases, the museums, what they want is more people to come at the museum because that's their main metric, right? They just want more people to enter the space and buy a ticket. Okay, fair enough. What do? We want more documentation on the Wikimedia project. So what can we do that make both parties happy and that does not cost a lot of money? So that can be an editathon, that can be displaying the pictures, like a temporary exhibition of the pictures of Wikilove monuments. And it doesn't need to require a lot of money because you don't even need to print the pictures on a fancy frame. Maybe you can just show them on a screen or like on some equipment that the museum already has. So it's also a lot about starting from what they already have. For example, if a library already has a specific book scanner, that's where you can organize a Wikisource editathon saying, okay, we're going to digitalize a book and then we're going to put it on Wikisource and transcribe it. This is another great way of aligning the interest because the library, they do not have money for a digitalization program. But they have the equipment. So, okay, we're going to do it for you. That's basically sometimes putting ourselves in the shoes of I'm not going to say a service provider because we are not a control digitalization consultant company. But if we approach the partner with, okay, what can we do for you? Then that helps opening the doors. But honestly, after a while, I think to run a project, a minimum of budget is needed. So there need to be money coming from somewhere. It can be a rapid grant. It can be, in our case, we are lucky because Wikimedia Italy has some specific grants for cultural institutions if they run partnerships with Wikimedians. So it helps, even if it's just to pay for a little bit of equipment or the food on the day to motivate people to come.
Thank you so much, Léa. We are going to close the session now. And before I close, I wanted to share the reflection that the ultimate takeaway today is that community survival is not just about the number of edits or uploads. It is also about building this ecosystem of care and open spaces where we share the celebrations, the ups and downs, and even little victories. So when we look at free knowledge through that adaptive lens, I'm sure our communities can become unstoppable. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to you, Leah. Thank you so much for your time, for your sharp clarity, and for sharing the real triumphs and real struggles of Wiki Sud Italia and a Sicilian community. You have given us an invaluable blueprint to take home and adapt. And everyone who joined us, thank you for being here. These conversations are only as strong as the community that shows up to shape them. We appreciate you taking part and for also your questions. Please keep an eye on our communication channels for the next session, and we will be keeping you posted about the recording link through the mailing list and the Telegram group. Please do join us for our next session. Until then, keep building and keep the momentum alive. Again, thank you so much, Leah, for being here.
Thank you.